beautiful thing about sacred intimacy is that it will continually ask us to go deeper and deeper into healing our own wounds, into healing the wounds of our parents and the generations before our parents, because as we know, trauma gets passed down. It will keep us focusing on the things that we need to integrate, the things we need to heal so that we don't pass them on to our children. We are making a stance to change a relational karma. So how can we become more adept at owning our shit, at identifying, the pathologies and the habits and the patterns that we bring into our relationship? I think there's a few ways that I'd like to lay this out. The first and easiest way is to understand your reactivity, right? What happens when you get triggered? Because the thing about our childhood wounds and our patterns is that they happen unconsciously and they happen instantly. So in being aware of how I react to a specific trigger, right? And these triggers tend to be very repetitive. I think we can all agree on that in relationships. It's the same kind of argument again and again. It's the same sort of breakdown again and again. So one of the ways that you can start to identify the parts of you that need to be tended to. I gave some examples, based on, deep things that may come up during deep sexual practice. But another way to look at this are the things that come up when my partner isn't doing what I want, right? When the world or the guy I dated or, my feminine partner isn't giving me what I want, what do I do? And what that will uncover, is your strategy. Something, somebody like Terry Real would call your adaptive child, right? But we all have these strategies of trying to fix things when our partners are not giving us the kind of love that we want. So I do think that there's a really important practice that I would like all of you to try at home, which is to look to the moments where you get triggered and start to pull on that thread, really get clear. So, he gets dismissive with me, for example, and what happens in your body? What do you notice in your body? What sensations do you notice in your body? Where has this happened previously in your life? And then be really aware of what it is that you do in response to that. When you do that, you start pull the thread on that, you're going to probably come to a wound or a pattern or an experience, an event that led you, or a series of events that led you to develop that strategy. And being able to articulate that to your partner is really important. So for example, if he's dismissive with you and your reaction, your pattern is to get really quiet and just withdraw for a couple of days and sort of, seethe in resentment or silently scorn or, punish with coldness or any of that. If that's your pattern, one of the first things you can do is you can say like, wow, when you just said that, I felt so dismissed and I'm wanting to do this. I'm wanting to withdraw. I'm wanting to be cold. I'm wanting to punish you, right? You can just narrate what your impulse is. You can also say, if you're aware of this, you could say something like, and what I'm aware of is that the part of me that feels unimportant to you, the part of me that feels like you don't care. Right? It doesn't take a genius to figure out that kind of response will often nurture intimacy, will nurture empathy, will nurture care in a way that your habitual pattern could not. So there's so many moments that we can slow down and put the microscope of our awareness on and track, right? What's our reaction? What are the feelings beneath the reaction? If I really pulled on this thread as far as I could, what would I find? Would I find something in my childhood? Likely, right? Would I find something in my past relationships? Likely. So, we get to, the beautiful thing about sacred intimacy is that it will continually ask us to go deeper and deeper into healing our own wounds, into healing the wounds of our parents and the generations before our parents, because as we know, trauma gets passed down. It will keep us focusing on the things that we need to, I don't want to say fix, but the things we need to integrate, the things we need to, heal so that we don't pass them on to our children, right? We are making a stance to change a relational karma. That's the way that I would like to describe it. And what that requires is that we look deep in those moments when we get triggered. And if we can create a culture in our relationship where that kind of exploration and that kind of personal ownership and that kind of, unwavering responsibility for what we are bringing to the relationship, it will create the foundation of safety. It will relax our partner's nervous system. It will also relax our own, because when we own a truth and we can own it, with our head held high and our heart somewhat open, right? We're not collapsed into this truth, but when we can own a truth lovingly, we also feel better about ourselves. So all of these building blocks are required for us to have the foundation, a strong foundation for our temple. And I really do believe that in order to create the sustainable, sacred intimacy that we crave, the intimacy that allows us to swim in the divine, to really live in magic, to make our sex artful and magical and deep, does require us to create this foundation. And it's lazy. And again, no judgment. I've certainly done it. It's lazy for us to expect that we can just kind of have a strategy of becoming, deep sexual intimacy practitioners, but not address the deep wounds and deep patterns that have been passed down from generation to generation and that we've kind of cultivated and solidified throughout our lives. So I'd like to leave you today with reflection. And I'd love, if you feel like it, to take a moment with a notebook and really take an inventory of the patterns that you're aware of, the patterns in your relationship that get, kicked off when a very, consistent trigger is fired, and start to take stock of what your reactivity is and what your pattern is in these moments of conflict, or in these moments of perceived conflict, or in these moments of not getting what you want, right? The deepest work I think that we can do, right? The work that is often the most difficult, is for us to look at who we become when our partners are not giving us what we want. But it's also the greatest place of growth. It's the place where we can really learn about ourselves. And then in the learning about ourselves and the sharing of our, work around trying to heal that part of ourself, we actually add so much stability and so much nourishment and so much relaxation to the relationship. So take an inventory of where you get reactive, what happens in your body, where that has been a pattern before, in your relationships, where you think it comes from. By all means, feel free to talk to a therapist or another professional who can help you unpack these things. And rather than thinking about it as something that is wrong with you or something that needs to be fixed or something that is shameful, right? Think about it as the price you're paying to have the deepest intimacy possible. Think about it as the price of entry to creating a sustained temple of love. If we do that, then the foundations of our temples will be strong. If we don't do that, then again, like I shared about in the last episode, we've got one pillar that is kind of cracked and weak, even though the other two pillars might be somewhat strong. And so, unfortunately, and again, this is the big message I think that will come through in this podcast. We have to do our own work in order to have the kind of intimacy that we crave.